Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes? All right. Sounds good? Think we're good? Okay. Good morning and a warm welcome to everyone joining us for the 2025 Southeastern Massachusetts Libraries Legislative Breakfast here at the Norfolk Public Library. My name is Kristen Cardozo, and I am the Library Director of the Joseph H. Plum Memorial Library in Rochester and a member of the Legislative Breakfast Committee. This year, the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners has launched a new advocacy campaign in line with the FY26 Legislative Agenda's theme of Empowered by Libraries. At lovemasslibraries.com, you can see the testimonials, photos, and videos uploaded by library patrons showcasing the power of and love for libraries across the Commonwealth. One of my favorite quotes, not counting those about my own library, of course, is this one about the Norton Public Library. I thought that the arrival of the personal computer would spell the end of the public library. Not only didn't that happen, but the library, both in person and virtually, is in some ways more important to people than ever. It remains a vital resource for our community. I think of the Norton Public Library as the real heart of our town. People of all ages consider it theirs, which it is. Libraries deserve all the support they can get from our local and state legislators. It is theirs and yours. Libraries belong to all of us, and it is our responsibility to ensure they thrive so they can continue to empower everyone in the Commonwealth, which is part of what we are doing here today. So thank you again to all the legislators, state and local officials, library trustees, friends, library staff, and advocates for being here. With that, please join me in welcoming our first speaker, Jennifer Jones, Library Director of the Lakeville Public Library.
Thank you. Move this up just a little. All right, I'm not going to try it. Okay, so I wanted to start with some thanks and acknowledgments while we're sitting. I wanted to say thank you to Senator Becca Rausch, who will be here momentarily. Oh, I think she just walked in. Hi, thank you to Senator Becca Rausch for being here. Perfect timing, I gotta say. I also want to say thank you to the Norfolk Public Library and the Norfolk Friends of the Public Library for hosting us today, for providing the food, and also special thanks to Adam and David, who David is walking around doing some photography, so be sure to stop and take some photos with your reps. There's a lovely banner up here where you can stand to take your photos. I'd also like to thank Senator Feeney's office. We have Keith Drucker and William Titus here today. For our representatives, we have Alex Movizian from Michael Chasolon's office. If I'm butchering names, please let me know. We also want to thank Natalie Rubin for being here from Representative Howitt's office. Representative Norman Orrell is here. We also have Representative Edward Phillips. And we're waiting on a few more representatives to show up, so we will thank them when they come in. Another thank you I'd like to give is to the Commissioner Conrad, the speaker today, Tressa Santillo, and Bernadette Rivard, who will be speaking later. I also wanted to take a moment to recognize the passing of Representative Carol Doherty of Taunton and Easton. I would also like to thank the attendees today. Thank you all for coming out, and a special thank you to the Legislative Breakfast Committee. And now I'm going to ask Tressa Santillo to come up and give some remarks from the Massachusetts Library System. She is the Electronic Resources Manager. Thanks.
Hello. Hello. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tressa Santillo, and I'm the Electronic Resources Manager at the Massachusetts Library System, or MLS, as you'll hear me refer to it, lots of M's in this state. Thank you to the Norfolk Public Library and the Southeastern Massachusetts Libraries for hosting this morning's event, and thank you to our elected officials for your continued advocacy on behalf of the important work libraries do. So MLS is a state-supported nonprofit funded by line 709401. We support over 1,500 member libraries of all types, and we strive to provide equitable access to all those who live, work, and/or study in Massachusetts. Next summer, MLS will be celebrating 15 years of service. Since 2010, we have continued to provide members with access to our services at no or low cost. Our role remains the same as it did 15 years ago: keep libraries at the center of their communities. From managing the statewide delivery program to offering consulting and training opportunities for library staff, MLS ensures excellence for Massachusetts libraries. This past fiscal year, we launched a pilot scholarship program so staff from small libraries could attend the 2024 Public Library Association Conference in Columbus, Ohio. Thanks to this grant, 44 Massachusetts library staff attended the conference to achieve their professional development goals. That's awesome. One library director said, quote, "I absolutely could not have attended this conference without the scholarship. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to come back with so many ideas and be able to advocate for these things at our library," end quote. With the program's success, we now offer scholarships to anyone working at an MLS member library who wishes to attend any conference relevant to their current work or library career aspirations. Our team also expanded the number of asynchronous courses offered in our online learning hub, where library staff can explore learning opportunities at their own pace. As with many other fields, librarianship looks to address new and inclusive practices in workforce development. To work towards this goal, we launched the Pathways to Inclusion project in 2024. This project will identify ways both MLS and other employees of library workers can increase the appeal and accessibility of a career in libraries to individuals from underrepresented groups. Improving traditional digital and information literacy is another key focus at MLS. The Commonwealth eBook collections expand access to digital content to all Massachusetts residents. Through this program, our Overdrive K-12 shared SOAR collection currently ranks second in the United States and second in the world in total circulations for K-12 shared collections. That's me. That's my program. One school librarian said that through the shared SOAR collection, her school's total book circulation increased by 400%. And a personal note, we are represented well with the Sales Library Network with schools from the representing Sales Libraries, Sales Geographic District. So our yearly contributions with iRead provide member libraries with engaging themes and activities to encourage reading for all ages through our summer library program. Additionally, in collaboration with the Boston Public Library and Mass DOT, statewide transit riders continue to benefit from the Browse, Borrow, Board program. Through this initiative, riders can browse and borrow multilingual digital reading materials on the go as they board the trains. I live in Central Mass. We don't have that. As we embark on a new strategic planning process, we know there will be challenges that require unique answers. With your advocacy and financial support, we will ensure that state funds continue to benefit local communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Tressa, for that overview. And now I'm going to ask Debbie Conrad, Commissioner of the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, to come up and talk about the legislative agenda.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to say something politically incorrect. This is my favorite legislative breakfast in the state. I love to come back here and see all the people I used to work with. You get a great turnout. You have wonderful support from your legislators. Thank you for inviting me yet again. I hope I won't bore you by it. I think this is what, the 5th time, 6th time, something like that? Anyway, so of course I have to thank the organizers for this. I know that, can you hear me? Okay. I know how much work goes into this. And thank you to all the legislators and their aides and trustees and friends who are here today. It's very important this year that we have a visible demonstration of support for our public libraries. Very important this year. As one of the commissioners appointed to serve on the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, which I'm going to call MBLC, as I said, lots of things here. One of my primary responsibilities is to advocate for the Board of and Massachusetts libraries. I'm here today to talk about the MBLC 2026 legislative agenda, but also issues facing the Massachusetts library community as a whole. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts has been the leader in establishing and supporting library services for its citizens. The Franklin Public Library was the first free public library in the United States. Established in 1848, the Boston Public Library was the first large free municipal library in the United States. And in 1890, the Free Public Library Commission of Massachusetts, now known as the MBLC, was established, and it is the oldest state library agency in the country. Massachusetts has demonstrated that it recognizes the importance of strong local public library services to the community. Public libraries provide a foundational structure to support civil discourse, community engagement, and free speech. And those concepts are now under attack across the country. We must do everything in our power to prevent libraries from falling prey to those attacks. Now is the time to take the steps necessary to protect Massachusetts libraries and the staff who make them the amazing places they are by ensuring they have the resources they need to flourish. So I'm going to break this up into different parts. Let's begin with federal funding. Massachusetts, all right, we'll begin. Massachusetts receives approximately $3.2 million per year in funds awarded by the Institute for Museums and Libraries, IMLS. There's a theme, there's always an L here somewhere. This is the only federal grant program dedicated to libraries. And the MBLC uses those funds to award competitive grants to libraries, support the licensing of statewide databases which provide critical and reliable sources of information. They're used very heavily by K through 12 students, but it's also available to the general public. Funds the wildly successful summer reading program, and partially finances LEA, which is the shared catalog of ebooks and audiobooks. I think somewhere there's a handout that explains what comes out of federal funding. But most importantly, there are frontline MBLC staff members whose salaries are partially or fully funded through these grants. These are staff members whom libraries across the Commonwealth depend upon for assistance when they're facing challenges. Undoubtedly, this program is or soon will be on the chopping block. Of course, we're asking that you contact your federal senators and representatives advocating for this program, but we need to prepare for the worst. And I know that the agency management team is working on contingency plans if the program is discontinued. Now, admittedly, there's only so much that can be done to insulate the agency if a reduction of that magnitude takes place. For that, we're going to have to turn to our state legislators, whom I know are also making plans for reductions in federal funds and programs. So I have a twofold request when considering the MBLC state line items outlined in the handout you received. It's on the back of the postcard. The first is do no harm. Our sincere thanks to the governor and the legislature for providing substantial increases to our line items over the past several years. When the lieutenant governor met with the commissioners at our February meeting, she stated that the governor's budget had level funded the agency line items at a time when other items were being reduced. And this was because they recognized how critical library services are. But we can't afford to go backwards. I've been a librarian in Massachusetts since 1986, and I have seen firsthand how often state funding for libraries has been dramatically reduced during times of financial distress. Those reductions had a devastating impact on statewide and local library services, and it has really taken us almost 2 decades to recover. The second thing, my second request, is when you are considering our budget requests, if there's any money left over, we do have some priority line items that we would like you to consider. The 3 line items that we have as identified as our priorities is 7,091.01, which is the MBLC agency line. Increasing this item would be critical to MBLC operations if federal funds disappear. Librarians across the Commonwealth are reckoning with fallout from an unprecedented period marked by increased service demands along with a record number of book, program, and intellectual freedom challenges. This has resulted in libraries being understaffed and overstressed, with work environments that have become increasingly confrontational and sometimes dangerous. The staff at the MBLC provide resources and advice to libraries requiring help with these situations. An increase in this line item would provide some buffer from damages if federal funds are lost. The next line item is $7,095.01, which you'll hear more about later in the program, which is public library local aid. State aid to public libraries has consistently proven to be an extremely effective tool for public libraries. Funds from this line item appear on your community's cherry sheet and can be used to supplement local budgets. State aid funding has an oversized impact on communities, enabling libraries to meet unique needs that are simply not possible within municipal budgets. Increasing funding to 9501 would have a positive and immediate impact on every community served by a public library in Massachusetts, and also may serve to provide a cushion if they face the possibility of some local funding reductions. And the third line item is $7,095.06 for the Mass Center for the Book. We're going to call that MCB. There's going to be a test. See if you remember all of these. The Mass Center for the Book inspires a love of reading by honoring the rich literary culture of the Commonwealth. It's the smallest line item in our budget, and our increase request is modest in terms of dollars, but the importance of its programs cannot be overstated. The MCB receives no federal dollars, and the majority of its operations are funded through this line item. It provides important services to promote unrestricted access for books and libraries, fosters literacy and learning for all ages, acts as a powerful ally for libraries extending literacy and learning beyond traditional library audiences, and supports outreach programs to impact family literacy in gateway communities. It is a small agency, packs a big punch, and its services are critical at a time when childhood literacy rates are falling. Now, happily, not everything that we're requesting requires money. We're also asking for your support for the passage of library-specific legislation. Last year, two pieces of legislation, broadly known as the Freedom to Read and e-book bills, failed to make it to a vote. The bills have been refiled and now have new bill numbers. Again, I think you might have handouts with that information. These bills are SD 141, an act regarding free expression, filed by Senator Cyr, Olivier, and Sylvia. HD 625, an act regarding free expression, filed by Rep. Moran, and HD 1221, an act addressing challenges facing public libraries and digital resource collections, filed by Representative Murray. States including Illinois, New Jersey, Maryland, Massachusetts, Colorado, Vermont, and California have all passed right-to-read bills. Why not Massachusetts? We were the first in everything else. But in at least 29 other states, bills have been filed and in some cases enacted which restrict the right to read, eliminate library funding, or impose criminal penalties upon librarians who are just doing their jobs. Now, that type of statewide threat has not been an issue here, although I would like to point out that there has been a bill filed recently, and it is HD 2535, an act relative to child protection, which removes language from the general laws that provides legal protections for librarians, among other things. So we are not immune from these kinds of issues. At the same time, if you spoke to a group of librarians from across the state, you would hear they face the threat of book bans and staff intimidation on a regular basis. Social media campaigns are being launched by library opponents, this being one, and staff members harassed. It is critically important that this legislation be passed this year, soon, to ensure that librarians have the legal protections they need to effectively do their jobs without fear of threats or retribution. We must have state-level protections for our libraries to combat any attempts at a federal level to restrict the basic functions of public libraries. Therefore, if you're a legislator or a legislative aide, we're asking that you support SD 141 and HD 625 and take the steps necessary for swift passage. If you're here as a library supporter, contact your state rep and ask them to sign on and frankly get moving, because time is drawing short for this kind of an issue. The other bill is a little more complicated and technical. It's HD 1221. It was filed again last year to ensure that the pricing for digital resources licensed to libraries is fair. Publishers of digital content have established, I think, arbitrary and inflated cost models for the licensing of materials to libraries, creating barriers that prevent them from meeting basic demands from their patrons. Too often, libraries are required to license materials based on predatory pricing models. We're asking for guarantees that libraries can license these titles under terms that are fair and transparent. Wouldn't be nice if it was free, but not likely. So finally, this brings us to what we all need to do at the local level. Too often during difficult budget deliberations, libraries are viewed as non-essential services. Town officials need to remember that during the time of COVID, which was not that long ago, libraries provided essential services. Librarians went to extraordinary lengths to provide a lifeline to people who had lost community connections. Post-COVID, libraries continue to provide safe spaces for all residents, and demands upon their services grow every year. It is up to library supporters to make sure that message is transmitted to your local decision makers. And the MBLC, as was mentioned, has developed a tool to get that message across. This is the information about the Empowered by Libraries campaign. There's a QR code, there's a URL. Go to it, pass it around to your patrons, have them put in their comments about how much they appreciate the library. And we will make sure that your legislators receive that information. Legislators always say that they're looking for stories. This is a terrific way of making sure that your patrons can tell their stories in their own words. Library supporters, as you all are, cannot gather without recognizing the extreme threats that our institutions and colleagues face in the current political climate. The very concept of free public library service, open to all, is being threatened. If you love libraries, and if you recognize that libraries are essential in the support of a free and democratic society, this is the time to voice your support. We all need to speak up for libraries. There is no other agency that provides the depth and variety of services to every member of the community, regardless of age, ethnicity, income, or physical ability. Do not let today be the end of your advocacy. Go out there, talk up libraries, get in touch with your state reps, talk to your friends, talk to your trustees, get the message across. We all need to stand together this year. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to thank Debbie for that call to action. And now I'd like to welcome Massachusetts Library Association remarks from Bernadette Rivard, Assistant Treasurer of the Massachusetts Library Association.
Hello, I'd like to thank Debbie for making my job easier because I think there's going to be a lot of repetition here, but let's go for it. I'm Bernadette Rivard, the Director of the Bellingham Public Library and the Assistant Treasurer of the Massachusetts Library Association. I'm here to voice MLA's full support for the MBLC's legislative agenda. As you heard from Debbie, increased state funding for a variety of line items is critical to the libraries of the Commonwealth, so we can continue to provide excellent service to our communities. As a public library director, I can't stress enough the importance of funding MLS's vital delivery service that moves items between our libraries, state aid funding that provides libraries with funds that can support programs and services that are outside of our municipal budgets. Many libraries use state aid funding to pay part-time staff, assist in meeting required materials expenditures, and other critical services. Without these funds, many libraries would be forced to cut back on hours or services. As you know, Our society in general, and libraries in particular, are facing unprecedented challenges to intellectual freedom. Intellectual freedom is the cornerstone of a thriving democracy. It guarantees the right to free inquiry, to explore diverse viewpoints, challenge assumptions, and form your own informed opinions. Access information, to seek out knowledge from various sources without censorship or restriction. Freedom of expression, to share your ideas and beliefs openly, even if they are unpopular or controversial. Intellectual freedom empowers individuals, fosters innovation, and ensures a well-informed citizenry capable of making sound decisions. According to the American Library Association, challenges to titles in libraries has increased exponentially. In 2014, there were 235 attempts to censor books in libraries, about 183 different titles. By 2023, that number had grown to 938 challenges to an astounding 9,021 total titles, 424 different titles. And those challenges are not just happening in red states. In 2014, there were no book challenges in Massachusetts. In 2023, the most recent year ALA has compiled statistics, there were 37 challenges to 63 titles. Libraries are a vital community service that provide access to information for all. They should be safe havens for exploration and learning, not battlegrounds for censorship. Book bans and program challenges directly threaten our fundamental right to access information and explore diverse viewpoints. They restrict access to knowledge and stifle critical thinking. These actions censor ideas and silence marginalized voices, limiting our understanding of different perspectives and experiences. Many challenged books address important social issues like racism, LGBTQ+ identities, and mental health. Banning these books denies children access to vital information and support that may cause harm. Support for our libraries by supporting the MBLC's legislative agendas, financial goals, as well as supporting the principles of intellectual freedom are vital for the health of our communities, and we ask you, our legislators, for your support. Thank you.
Okay, I'm happy to report that the coffee is done. If you feel you need to grab a cup. And while you do that, I wanted to thank Representative Marcus Vaughn for being here, and also Representative James Hawkins and staff, Betty DeBenedictis. Did I get that correct? Oh, great. All right. So I'm going to do a little presentation on state aid now. Give me a second to get my notes ready. So I know everybody's pretty familiar with state aid in this room, but if you aren't, a few notes about state aid. So many of you are well aware of the program, but for the newly elected legislators, new directors, trustees, and friends members, state aid to public libraries is an annual appropriation to the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners by the legislature. Municipalities and their respective libraries must meet statutory and regulatory requirements to even be eligible for these awards. So I wanted to report this fiscal year, 347 public libraries were certified to receive state aid, which is in the form of 3 awards: the Library Incentive Grant, the Municipal Equalization Grant, and the Non-Resident Circulation Offset. This award may be used for any library expenditure and can be spent without appropriation by the library director. So library budgets, as we know, are often a small percentage of total municipal budgets. So we're looking at 0.75% to maybe 2% each fiscal year. Appropriated funds often just cover the basics. We're talking about utilities, salaries, other employment benefits, contracts for services like elevators and alarm systems, office and custodial supplies, and materials such as books, ebooks, and so forth. This leaves little to no funding for program supplies, speaker fees, furnishings, technology upgrades, and other things that are essential now to first-rate library services. And this is where state aid saves the day, and why adequate funding for line 7000-9501 is a priority. So here you can see the top 3 uses of state aid for public libraries, as reported in the financial report to the MBLC. So number 1 is materials. Number 2 is programming, of course. And 3 is future projects. So the MBLC has a wonderful page on their website dedicated to the benefits of state aid, and I highly encourage everyone to visit that. But we're going to take a look at a few things the libraries in this area have been able to accomplish with state aid funds. So here we have Dighton Public Library. So they are currently in a temporary location awaiting the completion of a renovation. They will move into an existing building at 207 Main Street that will give the library more space and accessibility. In this photo, we have an interior shot of a storage unit, which contains desks, tables, chairs, and shelving that are purchased with a FY24 state earmark and FY24 and 25 state aid. Director Mark Prochnick says, procuring these items through state aid allowed us to use funds appropriated for the project to be applied to all of the building renovations, without shortchanging the interior outfitting needs of the library. If not for the state aid, the furniture, fixtures, and equipment would have come from the same project budget, which would have severely impacted the final project by shortchanging both the building's renovation needs and the interior fit-out. So here you can see a photo of the exterior, which is under construction. We're all looking forward to the opening of this beautiful new space, and we are excited for the residents of Dighton to use their new library. I'm going to issue a warning before I go to the next slide. It might make IT people a little bit anxious. So at the Richards Memorial Library, not to call you out, Debbie, at all, state aid funds provided an IT solution as well as some other things. So Director Debbie Clifton says the Richards Memorial Library uses state aid for many things, such as summer reading program supplies, performers, and presentations, as well as furniture, which we'll see in a moment, equipment, and everything IT related, from hardware to software. Not only did state aid purchase replace 17 public and staff computers, 10 barcode scanners, 10 receipt printers, the RML used state aid in FY25 to install a data rack to clean up and organize the library's IT closet. And there you are. It's beautifully organized, and you can easily access the servers and equipment. And the young adult area got a nice little upgrade, too, with some fun new furnishings to make teens feel welcome in the library. In fiscal years 23 and 24, the library used state aid to pay for consulting fees and designs for a repair and restoration project. This project addressed water issues, code compliance, and accessibility. Says Director Clifton, state aid is needed to cover much more and is greatly needed. So at the Joseph H. Plum Memorial Library in Rochester, they use state aid to provide circulating hotspots. These devices provide connectivity for library users who maybe can't afford internet service or may need it for an emergency use or recreational use. And hotspots, in fact, saved many families during the early years of the pandemic when multiple people needed to be online at home. So this user at Rochester relies heavily on the availability of hotspots and expressed concern about current executive orders in relation to the funding. He hopes that state aid is maintained so he can continue to take advantage of this important service. So on to Fairhaven in the Millicent Library. Fairhaven does rely on state aid to make up for municipal funding shortages. They have an interesting setup, as we will see. Director Kyle DeSico-Carey says state aid helps us because our unusual funding agreement that was set up with the town in the 1960s, the funding is based on a calculation that doesn't always provide enough. State aid helps compensate for the funding provided by the agreement. So if you don't know, Millicent Library is a 501c3 nonprofit which contracts with Fairhaven to provide library services. And so for many years they were funded by the Fairhaven Water Company. In 1966, the town and trustees negotiated for the town to take over the operations of the water company while providing funding to continue library services. And in this photo here, we see the 39th annual Teddy Bear Parade from 2024, and a tradition that was only interrupted for 1 year during the pandemic. There were over 250 participants last year, and I'm sure Fairhaven's children are looking forward to the 40th annual parade this year. And on to Lakeville Public Library, where I am the director. We needed a Wi-Fi upgrade, specifically new access points and a faster service to handle the increased device load and stable connectivity for virtual meetings. I'm sure everyone's been in the Zoom meeting where suddenly you just drop out. A paltry 35 megabits per second has been upgraded to 1 gigabit per second. With this faster connection, staff hopes to offer virtual reality programming for kids and teens. And in this photo, you have one of our new access points, which are purchased with state aid funds. Last but not least, the very library we're in today, the Norfolk Public Library, purchased equipment enhancing the library user experience with self-checkout stations, as you see in this photo, and a new mapping tool called StackMap. So StackMap visually directs people to the materials for which they are looking, so users can, online at home using the public access catalog, see visually where the material is that they are going to the library to look for, and they can also use the friendly kiosks in the library to explore using that map. So I highly encourage you to check it out while you're here. And finally, in this room, we have the installation of new speakers and new equipment. So we are the beneficiaries today of state aid funds, and I think that's important to note. So you see, this was just a small sample of projects using state aid to public libraries. Without this funding, these projects could not have been completed, and libraries would have to roll back on programming and equipment purchases. We ask that our senators and representatives champion the MBLC legislative agenda, including the budget request for line 7000-9501, and share with colleagues that this funding is a priority. Public libraries inspire, connect, and support their users in so many ways, and local aid is key to enabling libraries to continue empowering their users. Thank you. And I'm very excited now to welcome to the stage Senator Becca Rausch to deliver the keynote.
Good morning, everyone. Well, that coffee's really needed. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation to speak this morning and for the opportunity to be with you. Thank you, of course, to Jennifer and to Bernadette and Kristen and Tressa and Commissioner Conrad and all the wonderful folks here at the Norfolk Library for your presence, for your work, for your dedication, for making this morning happen. And for those of you who spoke, for your remarks. I also want to extend gratitude to my colleagues who are here today, Representatives Jim Hawkins and Norm Orrell, Ted Phillips, and Marcus Vaughn, and staffs from many other state reps' offices. And I want to extend a particular thank you to the staff from Senator Feeney's office, who are here amid a very difficult time after the recent passing of his mom. So I want to thank you for being here as your office both supports the senator in this challenging time and continues in the work that we had to do. I also want to recognize Anita Mecklenburg, who I saw earlier, who's on the Norfolk Select Board here, one of my partners in local government. And I think I got everybody, and if I didn't, I apologize. I also want to point out that you have a bipartisan group of legislators in the room this morning, bipartisan and bicameral, and I think that is a really important thing to note, especially in this moment in our collective national history. And I also want to give a particular thank you to Commissioner Conrad for your remarks, because my remarks are going to, in many ways, mimic yours. So thank you for that wonderful intro that you didn't even know you were giving. And of course, to all of you who are here with us this morning, bright and early on a cold and windy day. But you know what they say, early to bed and early to rise makes a person healthy, wealthy, and wise. I believe it was Ben Franklin who wrote that down, and we'll hear more about him later. As you know, my name is Becca Rausch. I am currently serving my 4th term in the state Senate, and it is my distinct honor and privilege to represent the people of the Norfolk, Worcester, and Middlesex district, which includes this amazing, wonderful town of Norfolk. So we are in my district here, which I share, this part of the district I share with Representative Vaughn. So welcome to our district. We are pleased to have you. I serve as the Senate chair of 2 joint committees, the Joint Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, and also the Joint Committee on Municipal and Regional Governments. I serve on several additional committees, including the Joint Committees on Revenue and Tourism, Arts, and Cultural Development, which are particularly relevant to the work that we are all here to discuss today. And I am so happy to be with you here today, particularly in this building, because I love libraries. I love them. I am not kidding. I am not being facetious. I'm not trying to feed you a line. I genuinely, deeply, truly love libraries. Libraries are one of the most important equalizers of our time. Libraries connect people to a world of knowledge, literally the whole world of knowledge, for free. Nothing compares to a library when it comes to helping people access information and opportunity. Libraries are a marvel of intergenerational service and utility. Everyone, from those looking at picture books, the wee ones checking out their first books, to those browsing the large print section perhaps, can be empowered by libraries. Young people come to the library to study, to hang out, to play games, to hear stories, listen to music, and have their worlds expanded by a wide selection of books curated for all levels of beginning readers. People of all ages come to the library to access the internet, apply for jobs, and read the news from anywhere in the world. Wi-Fi, computers, books, ESL classes, quiet spaces, sewing workshops for teens, mixers for seniors. These are just a few of the myriad resources that libraries in our Commonwealth provide. I am in no way exaggerating when I say, visit a library and your whole world opens. Get a library card and it opens even wider. Libraries remain one of the greatest community centers in America today. They serve as vital third places where people can congregate, learn, and relax, all without being charged for spending time. These places are disappearing from public life, making the roles of a library even more important. When COVID struck and the whole world retreated from public life and shared spaces, libraries were at the forefront of helping people manage isolation and connect with the world, even as things were at their scariest and most uncertain. Libraries innovated ways to serve communities. They pioneered curbside book deliveries and even book vending machines. Libraries offered their facilities for COVID testing and vaccinations. Librarians and staff stepped up when they were needed most, as they so often do. Even now, when society continues to fail the most vulnerable among us, people experiencing homelessness or addiction or any other set of challenges, often our libraries are where they seek help. It should not be a librarian's job to be a social worker, but it should remind us of a simple truth. Librarians are community superheroes. Thank you. You deserve this recognition, respect, and support. Sociologist Eric Kleinenberg describes public libraries as social infrastructure. He writes, and I'm quoting, "Libraries don't just provide free access to books and other cultural materials. They also offer things like companionship for older adults, de facto childcare for busy parents — I've taken advantage of that plenty of times — language instruction for immigrants, and welcoming public spaces for the poor, the homeless, and young people." I find it incredible, in the best possible way, that we choose as a society to value libraries and invest in them. To me, libraries are on a similar level of importance as public education. I often visit libraries all across my district, whether to hold office hours, attend a meeting, or pick up a good book. Sometimes it's to ask what to do when my dog eats a book. Yes, that actually happened to me last year, and yes, I replaced the book. I love the smell and the feel of the books, the art, and it's so great that we're sitting in this room and literally looking at art as I deliver these remarks, the history, the people filling the spaces, and the chance to take in what is often marvelous architecture. Stepping foot inside a library fills me with renewed gratitude that these monuments to learning and community are still here and always will be. Libraries give us hope for the future. I mentioned earlier that we are in my district, right here in Norfolk, and one of the things that makes me so very proud to represent this section of the Commonwealth is that our district, just next door in the town of Franklin, as Commissioner Conrad mentioned in her remarks, is home to the very first public library ever in American history. As the story goes, in 1778, the townspeople asked Benjamin Franklin for a church bell, but instead, he sent a collection of more than 100 books. His reasoning? Because sense is preferable to sound. Now, it will come as no surprise to anyone in this room that the townspeople could not agree about who should be allowed to use those 100-plus books. So, after much deliberation, on November 20th, 1790, those attending town meeting voted to lend the books to all Franklin inhabitants free of charge. And in doing so, they created the country's first public library, by the people and for the people, inside an absolutely stunning building that I urge you to visit. When I was there just last week, there was a whole paper crane art exhibit, an installation hanging from the ceiling in the young adult section, and you can actually see that original collection from Ben Franklin. Sometimes I go to the libraries in my district, and sometimes the libraries magically come to me. Last year, I joined a book club. It's a bunch of moms in Needham, where I live, of course. So the book of the month is rarely available within the Needham Library collection because by the time I get there and try to request it either online or in person, all the other moms have gotten there before me. They are all faster than me, and I am slow on the uptake, and then I'm stuck. Okay, but a few months back, I requested the book through that magic online request button, and lo and behold, when it showed up, it was from the Franklin Library. And I had a little moment of joy. Reciprocal borrowing is such a powerful community expansion and resource sharing tool. Reciprocal borrowing is up 30% in the last decade. In 2023, this library, the Norfolk Library, borrowed more than 13,616 items from its neighboring libraries, saving more than $200,000. The library in Needham, my hometown, saved more than $1.3 million by borrowing some 89,000 books from other libraries in Massachusetts. Libraries don't just foster connections within communities, they foster connections between and among them. My husband and I are the lucky parents of 2 children. They're both in elementary school. In fact, I am the only mom of young kids in the entirety of our state senate. As soon as our children were able to sit still for a picture, not on their own, we held them up, they got passports. And as soon as they were able to write their names, they got library cards. That book club I mentioned, well, the other moms really are faster than me. Sometimes, again, the books come to me, but in December I couldn't wait because we were heading out of town. So I looked at the interlibrary loan options and found that the Sherburne Library had a copy of that month's pick. So into the car I piled the kids and off we went. Because, of course, it was already vacation week. The Sherburne Public Library, in case you have not been there lately, recently completed a renovation, and it is gorgeous. Beautiful natural light, places to sit and read, and an amazing section for children and young adults that's filled with all sorts of interactive stuff, including age-appropriate computers. Both kids scamper into the library. We had recently watched The Never-Ending Story, a classic from my youth, and my 9-year-old asks, "Mommy, can we get the book?" That was it. I, of course, had absolutely no idea what he was talking about because we were literally surrounded by hundreds of thousands of books. I said, "Can you be more specific, please?" And he said, "You know, the book of the movie." Aha, okay. So off to the computer to access the card catalog, and a few clicks of the keys and a short walk later, we had the book in our hands. Now, this is an especially cool book, by the way, notwithstanding the fact that the original is in German. The printed font color changes depending on which perspective you're reading. So the story about the main character has one color, and the story the main character reads in the book within the book comes in a different color. Books are awesome. And so are libraries. That's what libraries bring, new and different perspectives, invaluable to those whose minds are open enough to receive them. What a gift to give to our children and our communities. Of course, it isn't just the youngest among us who learn at libraries. Libraries enable continuing education for all Bay Staters. Learning doesn't stop after school. The smartest people among us keep on learning and growing throughout their lives. Libraries are where so much of this learning happens, in books, in workshops, in community forums, and in conversations. In a survey conducted by UPenn and the New York Public Library, 88% of respondents reported that library use supported their personal growth. 88%. 77% of respondents said their library has had a positive effect on feeling that what they do in life is valuable and worthwhile. Despite the overwhelming and indisputable value of libraries, not everyone supports free expression and the exchange of knowledge. Book bans and challenges are rampant across the country, and Massachusetts is no exception. Here in our Commonwealth, formal and informal challenges, objections, and disruptions nearly quadrupled from 2021 to 2022. In 2023, as you heard earlier, Massachusetts schools and public libraries reported 37 book ban attempts involving 63 different titles. The books that were challenged often centered, unsurprisingly, LGBTQ+ people and people of color. Encouragingly, book ban attempts in the Commonwealth are very rarely successful. Last year, many of the libraries in my district and beyond celebrated Let Freedom Read Day during Banned Books Week, an inspiring act of resistance to censorship. And I was very proud and honored to participate in Let Freedom Read Day at the Dover Public Library. I applaud and support everyone who is fighting for open access to knowledge and supporting diverse perspectives. These discussions are happening right now in community meetings, on school committees, among library boards of trustees, and in our state legislature. I am a very proud early co-sponsor of Senate Docket 141, an act regarding free expression filed by my friend and colleague, Senator Julian Cyr. This bill declares that attempts to ban or restrict access to books in public libraries and school libraries undermines the public good and restricts academic growth, and that librarians should be protected from personal attacks and threats directed at them due to work performed in good faith within their roles and positions. It also affirms that freedom of expression includes students' rights to receive information through educational and age-appropriate materials, and ensures that decisions about book selection or removal are based on educators' professional training and not personal, partisan, or doctrinal beliefs. What an important bill. Our libraries deserve our full support. That means smart policy like Senator Cyr's legislation to prevent censorship, and also funding for facilities, staff, and the wide array of programming that makes our libraries so special. I support full funding for the Board of Library Commissioners to continue their leadership in helping librarians navigate new challenges and increased service demands. I support full funding for state aid to public libraries, which provides funding with flexibility for librarians to best meet the needs of their patrons. The governor's proposal of $20 million for this state aid in the upcoming fiscal year 2026, which represents level funding from fiscal 25, which in turn was up by nearly $2.5 million from fiscal 2024, is an excellent place for us to start our ongoing budget work. I support full funding for the Massachusetts Center for the Book, which deepens literacy and learning efforts beyond traditional audiences and in communities of need. Libraries bring so much to our Commonwealth that it can be hard to elucidate their full value, although I hope I have made a worthy effort. At just 1.1% of state spending, library services are among the most beneficial and impactful items in the entirety of our state budget. That ROI is tough to beat. And I have to take a moment to recognize the gendered nature of the library workforce. Amid persistent wage gaps, we must fund the work that women do. In Massachusetts, we take pride in our libraries. We invest in our libraries. We celebrate the people who make our libraries happen, both the librarians on the ground and the trustees and boards that oversee them. And we appreciate the patrons who not only value and benefit from libraries, but make them come alive. We are gathered here today because we all love libraries and because we care deeply about their future and our future. It is that shared love, that shared commitment that will help to push for the funding and policy we need to continue supporting these community treasures we call public libraries. It is no secret that the pursuit of knowledge, fact, science, and truth is at risk. Please know that I will always be your ally in efforts to resist that risk and persist in our pursuits. Thank you very much.
Okay, and that concludes the program for now. If you want to go back and have some more food, grab your legislators, take some pictures, and enjoy. Thank you.